Welcome to the Focus 3 podcast with Tim and Brian Kight. Brian is speaking at a conference in Buffalo, New York. So I'm going solo tonight. Actually, David Trishell, our colleague, is producing the episode, and he's here. Hi, David.
TK, good to see you this evening.
Doing well?
Yes, sir.
Great.
Yourself?
Doing very well, thank you. I'm still at home recovering from knee replacement surgery. It's about 3.5 weeks since I had the surgery. I'm ahead of schedule, doing the physical therapy and all that kind of work, and it's going to be good. It's a lot of work, but it's well worth it. Our topic for this episode is one of tremendous importance. It's something that all of us deal with all the time, and it's something that as we work with organizations, irrespective of industry, everyone is going through this. Everyone is experiencing this. Everyone has to learn how to respond to this. And the this I'm talking about is change. Change is just part of the way the world works, always has been, always will be. Change happens in companies, change happens in markets, change happens in cultures and societies. We go through stages in life where we have to adopt new ways of doing things, and it's just how life works. So I want to take some time tonight and dive into this topic of change and how you respond to it. And in particular, I'm going to share with you 12 do's and don'ts in response to change. Let's get to work. So change is a necessary part of how life works. It's a constant reality. It's not going to go away. In fact, change in our time is speeding up. It's happening faster and more often. And so your ability to adjust and adapt in response to change is arguably one of the most important skills that you can possibly have. I would say it's an essential skill in today's rapidly changing, technology-driven world. Success belongs to the people and the organizations who are able to manage change and adapt to new circumstances. In fact, I go further and say the marketplace is brutal on people who resist change and who do not adjust and adapt. The challenge that all of us face, though, when it comes to change is that it asks us to let go of familiar ways of doing things and then to embrace ways that are unfamiliar and uncomfortable. And as a result of that, a lot of people feel stress when change happens. It's very common. When we do workshops and we ask how many people here like change, a few hands go up, and they go up right away because there are people who do like change, but the vast majority of people in any given group don't really like change. And when change happens, they feel pretty stressed. Now here's an interesting thing, we're going to go into this today, and that is that the stress that people feel when change happens is not actually produced by the change itself, but it's produced how they respond to it. Change does not have to be stressful. Now, change is uncomfortable, I'll grant you that, but it doesn't have to be stressful. And so I want to unpack a little bit about the anatomy of change and why it's stressful for people, and then what we can do about that and embrace the productive discomfort that comes with change, but do it by minimizing the stressful piece of it. So it's an inescapable reality, and that is things change. But here's another reality, and that is that life's going to get increasingly difficult for you and for me if we don't change. Resisting change, folks, is foolish. If you resist change, it only makes you less competitive. In fact, complaining and resisting won't make change go away, but it will make change more difficult to deal with. So I want to talk with you tonight about some tools and some insights, these do's and don'ts that can help you hopefully respond more effectively to change. So here's one thing to think about change, and that is understand that change is the bridge to the future. In fact, maybe more specific, it's the bridge to your future. It's the bridge to the future of whatever company you're in. It's the bridge to the future of your marriage or your friendships. It's the bridge to the future of your family. It's the bridge to the future of the culture and society that you live in. Because the fact of the matter is the future's coming. The future is going to happen. You can't stop it. It's on its way. And you're probably not going to be able to slow it down either. It's going to arrive. The question is, as the future comes toward us and increase it with increasing speed, are you ready? And are you contributing to shaping that future? So let's stop the cynicism. We need to change the way we view and respond to change. We need to change our attitude about change. That's a great phrase. We need to change our attitude about change. That's worthy of Twitter. That's going to go on Twitter tomorrow. So let's stop the negativity. Let's stop the resistance. Let's stop complaining and resisting about change, and let's embrace it. Before we get into that, why do we resist it though? Why do we resist change? I think three things. One, we're stubborn. Two, we're caught up in the momentum, the gravitational pull of our familiar habits and routines. And the real big one is number three, we're comfortable. We're stubborn, we get caught in the gravitational pull of our existing comfortable habits and routines, and we are comfortable. I think those are the reasons why we resist change. And if you're going to deal with change effectively, stubbornness, old habits, and comfort, they're not going to be your friends. They're not going to help you. So when change happens, you can respond with discipline or you can respond with default. If you've listened to us and you know the content of what we teach, discipline over default. There's two ways to respond to the stuff of life. You can respond with discipline, which is an attitude and behavior that's intentional, purposeful, and skillful. Or you can react on default, which is an attitude and behavior that's impulsive, on autopilot, and resistant. Well, I don't need to tell you, if you react to change on default with impulse and autopilot and resistance, that is not going to work. And as I have been in this business as long as I have, I've watched a lot of people react to change on default. Here's a really interesting case study that most of you can probably do yourself, and I've seen it play out for 30 years. And that is when you're at the airport, watch what happens when there's a flight disruption. And there's a wonderful laboratory for an observation and a study about the anatomy of how people respond to change. I mean, when you fly, sooner or later, there's going to be a flight delay due to weather or mechanical problems or some other issue. And when those disruptions occur, all people need to do is respond with discipline and adjust and adapt. That's all they need to do. But a whole bunch of people don't do that. They get angry and they complain because their travel plans were disrupted. And all of their complaining and all of their resistance and all of their criticism, it doesn't help. In fact, it makes the situation more stressful for them and more stressful for the people around them. But if you watch carefully in those situations, there's usually one or two passengers who, in the midst of, in response to the delay or the canceled flight, is not getting angry. Someone who is responding to that need to adjust and adapt is responding with discipline. And I've seen it. I'll watch. I'll be at a gate. Maybe it's my own, and a flight's delayed or it's canceled. And passenger one gets mad, focuses on the negative, complains, and expresses disapproval, and makes it stressful for himself and the people around him. Standing right next to that passenger is passenger number two. And you watch her, and she sees the delay, sees the cancellation, calmly reaches down onto her phone, gets onto her map for that particular app for that particular airline, finds the next flight, gets a seat on the next flight, and then calmly walks over to the restaurant or a bar and has a glass of wine and opens up email and starts going through emails or voicemails. Now you watch those two situations and the event is the same. The change is the same. The variable is how those two different people internally processed that change. One reacted on default, one responded with discipline. One processed it by focusing and fixating on what made him mad and expressing that anger and disapproval and resentment. And the other processed it by simply focusing on productive action and taking productive action and doing what she needed to do, one, to get the new flight, and two, to take maximum advantage of the time that she had waiting for her next flight. And folks, that's a microcosm of life. There are changes, we're working in schools, there's lots of changes in education today. We work in healthcare, there's lots of changes in healthcare and hospitals today. We work in manufacturing, we work in athletics, and across all of these domains, change is happening. And I can watch and see some people reacting on default to those changes that they're facing, and some responding with discipline to the changes they're facing. And not all change is good. I'm not saying that all the change is positive and wanted, and a lot of change isn't. But again, you have a choice. whether you respond with discipline and you adjust and adapt, or you react on default and you blame, complain, and defend. So let me share with you 12 do's and don'ts in response to change. One would be a default reaction, which would be a don't, and one of those sets of 12 would be a respond with discipline, and that would be a do. Number one, do not expect certainty and stability. Don't do that. We don't live in a world right now where all the things are stable and the same day after day, week after. We live in a changing world. So don't expect stability and don't expect certainty that things are going to happen just the way you expect and just the way you want. What you should do is expect ambiguity and instability. Prepare for that. I mean, there is some confusing stuff. We don't know what's coming down the pike. We don't know what's going to happen next. And there's a certain degree of instability and ambiguity, and you need to get comfortable with that. So do not expect certainty and stability. Do expect ambiguity and instability. Number two, do not seek protection in the comfort zone, because that's an illusion. It's not a place of safety. It's not safe in the comfort zone. So don't seek protection there. And so many people try to protect themselves by reverting to what's comfortable. Folks, while you're hiding in the comfort zone, the world's passing you by. If you're trying to stay in your comfort zone, you're becoming less and less competitive every day. Things are changing, and you got to make sure that you change with them. So here's what you should do. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. The purpose of change is not to make you comfortable. The purpose of change is to create growth. So embrace productive discomfort. You have to be good at embracing discomfort. And all discomfort is, folks, when change happens, it's the old way resisting the new way. That's all it is. So recognize the value of the discomfort that's necessary with regard to change. Dave, does that make sense? Do you see people trying to hide in the comfort zone? Do you see people doing that?
All the time.
Yeah. But it's an illusion.
It is.
It's not safe in there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, number three, do not ignore the change or distort it. Boy, this is popular. People kind of ignore it. Oh, it'll go away. Or they distort it. They try to spin it in a way to make it, they try to justify not responding to it. Folks, you can't run from change. And don't try to distort it. It's there. Here's what you should do. See it with clarity and courage. See it for what it is and then respond to it. So you can't run from it. Don't try to distort it. Don't try to rationalize it. And definitely do see it with clarity and with courage. Number four, response to change, or what you don't do is don't hold on to what you need to let go of. Do not cling to the past. I see this a lot. People with a white knuckle grip on the way things used to be. Holding on to ways of behaving, ways of thinking that just don't work anymore. The world's moved on, the industry moved on, the market's moved on, things have shifted, and they want to stay in the old world. They want to stay in the old way, and they're clinging to it. And this is why change, I think, is so difficult. What you need to do is eliminate what is no longer necessary or what no longer works. Folks, it's a simple, let go. Let go. I know the old way was comfortable. I know the old way was familiar. I know the new way is uncomfortable and unfamiliar. Let go of the old. Grab a hold of the new. Number five, don't act like a victim. That's a mindset that weakens you. What you should do is take ownership and recognize you have a choice about how you will respond to change. That's the mindset that empowers you. That makes you stronger. Don't act like a victim. That makes you weak. Take ownership. Recognize you have a choice to make. That's what strengthens you. Number six, don't blame your company or the organization where you work or the market or the government or the environment as some kind of rationalization for why you're justified in resisting change. Those changes are happening. Again, I get it. Sometimes companies make poor choices in what changes to make. Sometimes the government makes poor choices about what regulations to. I'm not suggesting, again, that all the changes are good, but don't blame. Don't BCD. What you do need to do is step up and develop your ability, your change capacity, your ability to adjust and adapt. Change is a reality, it's a necessity, and it's your personal and professional responsibility to be good at responding to the changes in the world and organization and relationships and environments where you live and work. That's your responsibility. Step up and own it. Number 7, don't get locked in a narrow and negative focus frame. One of the consistent characteristics of people who resist change is they find and fixate on what they don't like about the change. And thus they fail to see the opportunity that's there. And folks, if you look for the negative in anything, you're going to find it. So don't focus and fixate on negative. What you do need to do is, and this is interesting, understand the change, invest time and energy understanding the change, align with the change, and use it for your own benefit. Zoom out to understand the why, and zoom in to find the opportunity. Again, zoom out to understand the bigger picture, and again, you may not agree with the why. Well, that's okay, but understand it. And then once you understand the environment and why this decision was made and why that shift was made and why this change in evolution is happening, now zoom in with the details. What part of that change is beneficial to you? Because if you look carefully and you bring optimism and you bring a positive mindset, you will find something in the midst of that change that you can lock onto and it can benefit you and the people around you. And that's your responsibility. Number 8, do not waste time and energy resisting. And that's kind of the theme here. Don't BCD. And resisting change takes effort. And there are a lot better ways for you to invest your time and your energy than in resisting change. So redirect that energy that you're wasting, resisting and complaining about change. And what you should do is redirect that energy, invest that into adjusting and adapting and making the changes you need to make. Study the change, like we said a moment ago. Understand it. And then understand, what is this situation requiring of me? And it's going to ask you to do work. It's going to ask you to make some uncomfortable adjustments in your life. Well, take what we're saying here, embrace that productive discomfort, and start doing the work. Number 9, do not try to control the uncontrollable. That's a bad investment, no payoff. I see it all the time. Change is happening, lots of stuff going on, tons of variables, and people lock onto things, start talking about things they do not control. They're real. There are elements of the change that are real, but you've got no control over those things. So what you should do is control the controllables. Manage those things that are within your control. That's a good investment that has a big payoff. So it's just fundamental, folks. Do not try to control the uncontrollables, but control the controllables. Number 10, do not slow down and drag your feet. Don't slow play the thing. Don't be a passive resistor. It doesn't work. And while you're doing it, you're getting left behind. And that's just not successful. So what you should do is accelerate and get busy making the changes that you need to make. I love this statement. I wrote this down earlier today. Do not let the rate of change outside of you exceed the rate of change inside of you. So I want to push you here a little bit. Don't just accept change. Don't just respond to change. Accelerate. Accelerate. The sooner you get busy making the changes you need to make, the more competitive you're going to be, the healthier you're going to be, the less stressful you're going to be. So don't drag your feet. Don't slow play it. Don't be a passive resistor. Accelerate. Number 11, don't let the past control you or the future frighten you. And that's really what it comes down to in many regards, is when people are saying no to change, when people are resisting change, they're allowing the past to control them, and they're afraid of the future. But if you respond to change with discipline, you embrace the future. You step up to the unknown. And it's an act of courage. And courage means strength of heart. And courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. It just means you're more committed to taking productive action than you are to being defeated by fear. Plus, at the end of the day, fear is mismanagement of the imagination. So own yourself and don't let the past control you. And this is the theme, you're going to have to untether from some things in the past in order to connect with things in the future and build the capacity that you need to build to respond to the new situation. And then finally, number 12, don't rely on old skills, but build new ones. The whole process of growth and change and development and getting better every day, that's the process of continuous personal and professional growth. And we cannot allow old skills to fool us into thinking that they're sufficient. We have to get better. We have a saying at Focus 3 that best version of you means be better today than you were yesterday and be better tomorrow than you were today. And that's not just a statement about growth in general. That's a direct statement about how change works. And if you want to be effective in response to changes in your personal, professional life, be better today than you were yesterday. Be better tomorrow than you were today. Don't get stuck in old skills. This topic then, and I'll wrap this up, this topic of change is one that everybody's dealing with. It's everywhere. It's public, it's private, it's personal, it's professional, it's everywhere in every organization, and it's not going to stop. Changes are going to continue to happen, and it's probably going to get faster and more complex. Your capacity to adjust and adapt is arguably one of the most important skills that you can have. So start building that skill. Don't react on default, but respond with discipline. Resisting and complaining about change is not going to help you. In fact, it's only going to make it more difficult. So step up, have courage, respond to change, adjust and adapt. Now go do the work.
That not all change is good. Let's say I'm in a position in my company where, let's just say middle management, maybe on the lower threshold of some of the upper management, and change is being proposed that is fundamentally unsound. Where do I draw the line as far as action goes, to embracing change as opposed to standing firm on principle? What should I do if I'm in that position?
Well, I don't mean to totally adjust your premise or your case or scenario. Well, first, I don't think we always know whether that's fundamentally unsound or not. I mean, if it's a change that violates some core principle, that's a different thing. Mm-hmm. Here's one of the interesting things about change. You don't know what's going to happen. It might seem to you like it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. How do you know? For sure. You're not sure. But I do think that brings up this topic. It's a great question. Speak up, talk, communicate. This is what we need to do. Change in an organization, change in a team is something we do together. And at some point, a decision is going to be made what direction we're going to go. But that's true for all organizations, whether it's change or a strategic decision or an operational decision and how we're going to solve this problem, whether it's change or it's strategy or it's ops. We discuss, we debate, we voice our opinion, and then a decision is made about what direction to go. And it might be a decision we didn't agree with. I believe one of life's greatest skills in teaming is when that decision is made, you get fully on board with it. And I think with regard to change, and I'll reiterate this, particularly with regard to change, because you don't really know. And if it's genuine change, you're kind of in the innovation realm. You're thinking this might work. It's new, it's different. And you're trying to respond maybe to change someplace else. So, and I think that, by the way, that's true throughout the hierarchy, whether you're in the C-suite or your direct reports or your middle management or you're lower in the totem pole. I think communicate, share, give your perspective, have your input heard, and then whatever decision is made, you go with it full force. I think that's critical in an elite culture that you do that.
What do you think about this statement? Because this is the one thing that I wrote down just in summary of this whole topic, that change is an external event, but stress is an internal choice.
I think it's a great statement. That's a great summary of the whole point about change itself doesn't produce stress. It's how we respond to change that produces the stress. Change is agnostic about us. Mm-hmm. Change isn't for or against us. It just is. It just, things happen, things shift, things alter. And it's our response that determines, again, our level of what our emotional state is. Actually, when I think about that, you said change is an event, stress is a choice. Change is an event, stress is a response.
Ooh, okay. So change is the external event, stress is the internal response.
And you don't have to respond that way. There's like the whole point in this podcast, there's ways of responding to change that are not stressful. Now, the one thing we can't say is that change is always comfortable. It's not.
Oh, yeah, no.
Change is hard.
Right.
But discomfort does not equal stress.
No.
Doesn't have to. That's why we say embrace
Productive
discomfort. Get comfortable being
uncomfortable.
uncomfortable. Yep.
All right. Y'all, go do the work.